You've been lied to. You were told motivation is a feeling. Something that comes to visit you like a gust of wind on a calm day, something you chase, something you hope for, something you wait on. But let me ask you, have you ever seen greatness wait? Did Lincoln wait? Did Carnegie pause? Did Ford sit in silence and hope for a lightning bolt of inspiration to strike him awake? No. The truth about motivation is brutal, and it is beautiful, because it doesn't come first. It comes last. It is the result, not the requirement. It is not the fuel that starts the engine. It is the fire that comes after you've already started driving through the storm. You don't get motivated and then move. You move, and then you get motivated. You act in the dark, with no light, no applause, no certainty. And that action, however small, however ugly, ignites something ancient within you. A spark. A force. A flicker of clarity that whispers, "Keep going." That is the real origin of motivation. You build it through motion. You summon it through commitment. You earn it with your sweat, your grind, your fight against comfort. Motivation is not a genie. It is a soldier. It obeys the man who commands himself first. And yet, most men are out here searching for it like fools chasing fireflies in a thunderstorm, waiting to feel ready before they begin. That's why they lose. That's why they stay broke, unfulfilled, average. Because they confuse the spark for the flame, the mood for the mission, the emotion for the decision. But you, if you are listening to this, you're not here to be one of them. You are here to hear the truth, raw and without sugar. You are here because somewhere in your bones, you already know, motivation is a consequence. Discipline is the cause. And discipline? Oh, that is where we begin. Discipline is the force that separates the kings from the cattle. It is the voice that says yes to the hard thing, no to the easy pleasure, never to the excuse. It is the root system beneath the surface of success, unseen, uncelebrated, but holding up the whole damn tree. The masses pray for motivation. The elite rely on discipline. Let me tell you the story of Thomas Edison, not when he succeeded, but when he failed 10,000 times trying to invent the electric light. Most people quote that story like it's some cheerful footnote in history. But I want you to feel it. 10,000 failures. 10,000 attempts. 10,000 days where the result said, "You're not enough." And 10,000 times, he chose discipline over doubt. He didn't feel motivated. He felt called. He knew the light wasn't just out there in the world. It was buried deep within him. And every time he got back up, struck another match, tried another filament, he wasn't chasing motivation. He was commanding it. And that's what you must do. You want to feel driven? Start moving. Start when it's uncomfortable. Start when it's inconvenient. Start when no one is watching. Start when everything in you screams to stop. Because that's the place where the false self dies and the real one is forged. You see, most people treat motivation like a light switch. They turn it on when it's time to go to the gym, time to write, time to build, time to rise. But motivation isn't a switch. It's a furnace. And a furnace doesn't light itself. You've got to stack the wood. You've got to strike the match. You've got to stoke the fire daily. Discipline is the act. Motivation is the echo. And the man who understands this, he becomes unshakable. Because now he doesn't depend on the mood. He depends on the mind. He doesn't wait for the perfect time. He decides the time is now. He doesn't plead for inspiration. He acts, knowing the inspiration will follow in his footsteps like a shadow. That's the truth about motivation. It follows men of action. It follows men of decision. It follows the one who moves even when his legs tremble, even when the sky is dark, even when doubt is loud. Because motion is faith made physical. You don't need more motivation. You need more conviction. You need more clarity. You need to remember why you began. And that leads us to the next truth. Clarity is the mother of fire. When a man is clear, he does not need motivation. His mission moves him. When he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't ask how he feels. He asks what must be done. Look at every man who has ever built something immortal. Walt Disney, whose vision of Disneyland was ridiculed, bankrupt, impossible. Do you think he was motivated every day? Hell no. But he was clear. He could see it, that city of joy in his mind, long before it was brick and steel. Or think of Andrew Carnegie, the steel titan, a man who came from nothing, who shined shoes and changed type bars, and still rose to dominate an industry by sheer force of vision. He didn't feel motivated, he was possessed by purpose. And so must you be. Because when the vision is sharp, the resistance is irrelevant. When the why is powerful, the how reveals itself. You don't need to feel good to move forward. You need to know where you're going and why it matters. So pause right now and ask yourself, what am I really building? Not just what you're doing, but why. Not just the job, the goal, the task, but the mission beneath it all. If you're unclear, you'll drift. If you're drifting, you'll depend on emotions. And if you depend on emotions, you'll break. But when you are clear, crystal clear, motivation becomes irrelevant. You become a storm, a force, a man who moves mountains not because he feels like it, but because the mountain must be moved, and he is the one to move it. Because the mountain must be moved, and you are the one to move it. But how do you do that? How does a man rise when his back is against the wall, when his vision is clear but the world is still against him? The answer is belief. Not the shallow belief of slogans and affirmations. Not the belief that wavers when the storms roll in. No, I'm talking about belief forged in fire. The kind that makes a man unstoppable not because he knows he will win, but because he knows he will not quit. The truth is, most people never fail because they're incapable. They fail because they don't believe they're capable. And if you don't believe in you, nothing else will matter. Not the plan, not the resources, not the talent. The world has seen countless geniuses rot in silence because they lacked one thing: conviction in themselves. But belief is not something you wait for. Belief is a choice, and that choice must be made daily, hourly. In every moment of self-doubt, you must rise above the noise and declare, I will become who I must be. Think of Henry Ford. When he proposed the V8 engine, every one of his engineers said it was impossible. It can't be done, they told him. It violates the laws of engineering. Ford didn't argue. He said, produce it anyway. Month after month, his team failed. They came back with reasons, excuses, proof that it couldn't be done. And Ford, he doubled down. Produce it anyway. That is belief. That is the will of a man who knows that reality bends to the mind that refuses to bow. He didn't wait for motivation. He commanded results with belief. And belief, when paired with relentless discipline and crystal clarity, becomes the most lethal weapon a man can wield. So the next time your mind tells you, this is too hard, you look it in the eye and say, good, let it be hard. I was built for this. Because you were. You were not born to blend in. You were born to bend reality, to push through walls, to remake the world in the image of your vision. But you cannot do that while doubting your worth. You cannot create while questioning your core. So cast out the poison of self-doubt. Kill it. Starve it. Silence it. Because belief isn't about proving the world wrong. It's about proving to yourself, every day, that you are exactly who you said you were. And when that belief sets in, something shifts. You stop hesitating. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop flinching at failure, because you understand now, failure is not the enemy. Failure is the sharpening stone. Let's talk about that, because it's the next lie you've been fed. The world told you that motivation comes from success, from winning, from the victory lap. But the truth is far more savage and far more liberating. Motivation, real, soul-level motivation, is born in the struggle. It is born in the day you get punched in the face and choose to stand up anyway. It is born in the moment you fall to your knees and decide this is not the end. You want fire, then you need friction. You want greatness, then you better make peace with pain. Every titan of history knew this. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election. He faced depression, defeat, ridicule, but he kept going. Why? Because he wasn't chasing comfort. He was chasing legacy. He understood that the man who bleeds is the man who builds. You see, most people only want the crown, but they don't want the weight. They want the stage, but not the solitude. They want the success, but not the sacrifice. But you, if you are going to rise, must embrace the struggle as your companion. Because the struggle is the sculptor. It molds you. It chisels you. It cuts away the weakness until what's left is solid steel. And in that crucible, you don't find motivation. You forge it. One early morning at a time. One painful rep at a time. One brutal rejection. One setback. One lonely night at a time. This is the price. And this is the gift. Because on the other side of that suffering is something sacred. The man who cannot be stopped. But don't make the mistake of thinking this is just about grit. This is also about vision. Because discipline without direction is wasted energy. Belief without vision is blind. You must see what others cannot. You must live in the future you are building, and feel it, breathe it, walk in it long before anyone else sees it. Walt Disney saw a kingdom before it had a single brick. Steve Jobs saw a world where art met technology before a single line of code was written. These men weren't motivated by what was, they were driven by what could be. And that's the kind of vision you must carry. Not a wish, not a daydream, but a demand placed upon reality by a mind that refuses to accept mediocrity. And that vision, it must become your standard. It must become so real to you that everything else feels like a betrayal of your destiny. Because when you are loyal to that vision, motivation becomes unnecessary. Purpose replaces it. Drive consumes you. And every action you take becomes sacred, a step towards something divine. But none of this happens without decision. And here is another brutal truth. Most men fail not because they lack potential, but because they never decide. They hesitate. They linger in the maybe. They drown in analysis. But the man who decides, truly decides, sets the entire universe in motion. Burn the boats. Burn the bridge. Make the decision and refuse to look back. That is the difference between the man who moves mountains and the man who only dreams of climbing them. Motivation without decision is a sugar high. But decision creates momentum. And momentum, once unleashed, becomes a tidal wave. So make the decision to become more, to demand more, to never again bow to fear or doubt or comfort. And when you do, you'll find motivation isn't something you chase. It's something you radiate. It becomes your aura. It becomes your fire. It becomes your identity. It becomes your identity. Because once a man decides, he is no longer the same man. Action transforms him, not in theory, not in spirit, in reality. Action rewrites the code of your soul. It tells the universe, I am no longer waiting to become. I am becoming. And the world responds. Opportunities reveal themselves. People appear. Doors open. Why? Because the world bows to movement, not thought, not intention. Motion. You want motivation? Then act. And not once, not twice, not when it's convenient. Every single day. Because greatness is not built in bursts, it is carved out of consistency. One decision at a time, one habit at a time, one early morning, one late night, one sacrifice stacked on another until momentum becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. You see, most people don't lack desire. They lack endurance. They start strong, fueled by hype, adrenaline, the novelty of a new pursuit, but when the excitement fades, they fade with it. That's not power. That's emotional dependency. And you were not born to be ruled by your feelings. You were born to command them. Because consistency is not about how you feel. It's about what you build and who you become through that building. Muhammad Ali didn't train because he felt like it. He trained because he was a champion, long before the world called him one. The man ran in the dark, fought in the pain, sacrificed the pleasure, not for the camera, but for the crown. And that is what you must do. You must be willing to show up when no one sees you, to grind when no one claps, to rise when no one cares, because that is how kings are made, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. This is the truth about motivation. It is born in the silence. It is built in the repetition. It is earned through brutal consistency. But understand this, you will fall. You will fail. You will break. bend, bleed. You will lose battles. You will have days where you question if it's even worth it. That is not a sign of weakness. That is the initiation. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Resilience is not optional on the road to greatness. It is the road itself. And resilience, real resilience, is built not in the moments when things go right, but in the aftermath of when they go horribly wrong. Think of Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison. 27. He was locked in a cage, stripped of power, isolated from everything he loved. But he did not break. He did not grow bitter. He grew stronger, more focused, more certain. He walked out of that cell not as a victim, but as a force of history. That's resilience. It's the refusal to let the world decide who you are. It's the discipline to keep showing up, even when the rewards are invisible. It's the courage to believe, even when belief feels like madness. That is what makes a man legendary. Not how high he climbs, but how many times he chooses to rise. And when you rise often enough, when you fall and get back up so many times you lose count, something sacred happens. You begin to trust yourself. And that trust, that is the birthplace of true motivation. Because motivation is not excitement. It is alignment. It is when your actions, your values, your vision, and your soul are moving in one direction. You become congruent. You become coherent. And in that state, every action feeds the fire. Every choice sharpens the blade. Every moment, even the mundane, becomes meaningful. You stop looking for a reason to keep going. You become the reason. And when that happens, you are unstoppable. But there's one more element, one most people never understand. Gratitude. Yes, gratitude. Not the soft, surface-level gratitude that says, I'm thankful for food and family. I'm talking about weaponized gratitude, the kind that sees everything as fuel. The pain, fuel. The setback, fuel. The rejection, the betrayal, the loss, fuel. Gratitude is power, because it reframes the storm as preparation. It tells your mind, everything is for me. Nothing is against me. That kind of gratitude turns a man dangerous. Because now, nothing can stop him. He doesn't run from adversity. He invites it. He doesn't resist the challenge. He devours it. He doesn't beg for an easier path. He becomes a stronger man. And that is when motivation is no longer something you chase. It's something that flows through you. You become a source. You become the fire. But even then, you must remain adaptable, because the path will twist. The rules will change. The storms will come harder. The winds will shift. And if you are rigid, you will snap. But if you are fluid, you will rise. Adaptability is not weakness. It is survival. It is evolution. And it is the quiet, unshakable confidence that says, no matter what happens, I will adjust. I will learn. I will overcome. Bruce Lee said, be like water, not because water is soft, but because water wins. It carves canyons. It floods cities. It flows through any obstacle. It adjusts to pressure and destroys anything in its path. You must do the same. Learn, adapt, reinvent, evolve, because life doesn't reward the smartest man. It rewards the man who refuses to quit, the one who stays humble enough to grow, hungry enough to chase, honest enough to confront his weaknesses and sharpen his strengths. That man becomes inevitable. That man doesn't need motivation because he has become movement itself. That man doesn't need motivation because he has become movement itself. He no longer waits for the perfect day. He no longer asks, should I? He moves. He decides. He executes. Because the truth about motivation, the raw, unfiltered truth, is that it has nothing to do with moods or energy or waiting for the stars to align. It is identity. Motivation becomes effortless when you become the kind of man who doesn't need it. When you are the storm. When you are the fire. When your habits speak louder than your feelings. You must understand this. The highest form of motivation is becoming the man who no longer negotiates with mediocrity. The man who does not try, he does. The man who does not dabble, he commits. The man who does not dabble in potential, he becomes a weapon of it. This is the final evolution, the full transformation, not inspired, not excited, but reborn. Because once you shift from motivated to unshakable, the world bends differently around you. You don't need to chase success, you pull it in with the gravity of who you've become. You don't need to ask for permission, you command the room with silence. You don't explain your value, you embody it. That's what motivation was always trying to teach you, not to feel something, but to become someone. And that someone, he doesn't quit, he doesn't wait, he doesn't shrink when the pressure hits. He stands up, he locks eyes with fear, and he says, you picked the wrong soul, because everything you've suffered, it shaped you. Everything you've lost, it refined you. Every moment you were overlooked, underestimated, laughed at, it forged you, until you became the man you are now, battle-tested, laser-focused, and driven by a fire that no outside force could ever replicate. You see, the secret of motivation is that it was never the goal. It was the spark. But you are the fire. And now you know. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for permission, praise, applause. The time for waiting is over. You were born ready, not because the path is easy, but because the path is yours. You were called to build, to break limits, to carve your name into the stone of history, not with luck or convenience, but with the blood, sweat, and soul of a man who refused to live a forgettable life. This is your hour. This is your turning point. And no one is coming to push you. You must push yourself. You must claim the life that's waiting for you, not because someone handed it to you, but because you earned it in the dark. The world does not need another inspired man. The world needs a dangerous man, locked in, dialed up, burning with purpose, and immune to the weakness that infects the masses. A man who doesn't bow to fear, because fear bows to him. So take this truth. Bury it deep. Let it guide your steps, fuel your mornings, harden your spine, and ignite your soul. Motivation is not the light you chase. It is the fire you become. Now go and burn the world bright.